The yellow taxi pulled up to the gleaming entrance of the Grand Plaza Hotel on a busy Thursday afternoon in Manhattan. Dr. Maya Richardson sat in the back seat, taking a moment to check her appearance in her compact mirror. At 42 years old, she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had built something remarkable from nothing. Her dark brown eyes, sharp and observant, scanned the hotel's impressive facade while she adjusted her navy blue blazer. "That'll be $45, ma'am," the taxi driver said, glancing at her through the rearview mirror. Maya handed him $60, telling him to keep the change. She had always believed in generosity, remembering her own days of struggling to make ends meet. Now, as the founder and CEO of Richardson AI Solutions, a company valued at over $3 billion, she made it a point to share her success in both small and large ways. The doorman rushed forward as she stepped out of the taxi, but his eager smile faltered slightly when he saw her. Maya noticed. She always noticed these things, but she kept her warm smile in place. After 20 years in the tech industry, she had learned to navigate these moments with grace. "Good afternoon," she said, her voice carrying the kind of authority that came from countless boardroom presentations and keynote speeches. The doorman quickly recovered his professional demeanor and helped with her luggage. The Grand Plaza's lobby was everything you'd expect from a five-star hotel in New York City. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings, their light dancing off marble floors, so polished you could see your reflection in them. Well-dressed guests moved about, their quiet conversations echoing off the ornate walls. Maya walked confidently to the front desk, her heels clicking against the marble floor. She had specifically chosen this hotel not just because it was hosting tomorrow's Tech Innovation Summit, where she would be delivering the keynote speech, but also because it was known for its exceptional service. Her assistant had confirmed the reservation twice, making sure everything would be perfect. Behind the front desk, a young black woman named Sarah, according to her name tag, brightened upon seeing Maya. "Good afternoon. Welcome to the Grand Plaza," she said with genuine warmth. "Hello," Maya replied, appreciating the genuine welcome. "I have a reservation under Dr. Maya Richardson." Sarah began typing on her computer, but before she could complete the check-in process, an older white man in an expensive suit approached. "I'll handle this, Sarah," he said, smoothly positioning himself in front of the computer. "Mr. Whitfield, I've already started the process," Sarah began, but he cut her off with a sharp look. "That's all, Sarah," he said firmly, before turning to Maya with a practiced smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm Thomas Whitfield, the hotel manager. I'm afraid we're experiencing some technical issues with your reservation." Maya kept her expression neutral, even as she felt the familiar weight of recognition settling in her stomach. She'd been here before, different places, different faces, but the same story. "Technical issues?" she asked calmly, reaching for her phone. "I have the confirmation email right here. My assistant confirmed the reservation just yesterday." Whitfield's smile remained fixed in place. "Yes, well, sometimes these booking systems can be quite unreliable. I'm showing that your room is actually unavailable due to maintenance issues." Through the lobby's large windows, Maya could see more guests arriving. She watched as a white couple walked in and was promptly checked in by another staff member, no technical issues in sight. Sarah, the receptionist, kept her head down, but Maya could see the tension in her shoulders. "That's strange," Maya said, her voice level but firm. "Perhaps you could check again? I'm one of the keynote speakers at tomorrow's Tech Innovation Summit being held here. I'm sure you wouldn't want the conference organizers to face any inconvenience." Whitfield's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "I understand your position, Dr. Richardson, but I'm afraid there's nothing I can do at the moment. Perhaps I could recommend another hotel nearby?" Maya stood there, her Louis Vuitton luggage at her feet, her company's success in her pocket, and years of similar experiences in her memory. She noticed Sarah discreetly sliding a small piece of paper across the counter when Whitfield wasn't looking. Maya picked it up smoothly, tucking it into her blazer pocket without looking at it. "I see," she said quietly, her mind already working through multiple scenarios. "Would you be kind enough to put that in writing for me, Mr. Whitfield? For my records?" Something flickered across his face, uncertainty, perhaps, but he maintained his composure. He had no way of knowing that this moment would mark the beginning of a significant change, not just for the Grand Plaza Hotel, but for the entire hospitality industry in New York City. Maya took a deep breath and opened her leather briefcase, pulling out her tablet. The lobby of the Grand Plaza Hotel had grown quieter, as if the other guests could sense the tension building at the front desk. Mr. Whitfield stood there, his forced smile becoming more strained with each passing moment. "Let me show you something, Mr. Whitfield," Maya said calmly, turning her tablet screen toward him. "This is the confirmation email from your hotel. And here are the 2 follow-up calls my assistant logged with your staff." She swiped to show more documentation. "I also have the conference organizer's official accommodation list, showing my reserved suite on the executive floor." Several other hotel employees had gathered nearby, pretending to be busy with their tasks while watching the scene unfold. Sarah, the young receptionist, was entering data into her computer, but her fingers weren't actually typing anything. "Dr. Richardson," Whitfield said, lowering his voice, "I understand your frustration, but as I explained, we're experiencing unexpected maintenance issues with the executive floor." Maya interrupted politely. She gestured to the couple who had just checked in minutes ago. "The same floor where those guests are heading right now." Whitfield's face reddened slightly. A drop of sweat appeared on his forehead despite the lobby's perfect air conditioning. That's a different section of the floor." Maya nodded slowly, taking out her phone. "I see. Then you wouldn't mind if I call Mr. James Chen, the conference organizer? He's expecting me to review tomorrow's keynote preparations in person this evening. I'm sure he'd be interested to know why his featured speaker is being turned away." At the mention of James Chen's name, another hotel employee, an older woman who appeared to be the housekeeping supervisor, stepped forward. "Mr. Whitfield, Suite 1506 was prepared this morning according to the VIP protocols. There are no maintenance issues on that floor." Whitfield shot the woman a sharp look. "Mrs. Peterson, that's not." "I have the readiness report right here," Mrs. Peterson continued firmly, holding up a clipboard. Her hands were shaking slightly, but her voice was steady. "All executive suites are fully operational." The lobby had grown even quieter. A few guests had stopped to watch, some taking out their phones. Maya noticed a young man in the corner apparently recording the interaction discreetly. Maya reached into her blazer pocket and pulled out the note Sarah had slipped her earlier. She unfolded it carefully, reading it while Whitfield argued quietly with Mrs. Peterson. The note contained a list of dates and similar incidents, complete with names and contact information of other guests who had been turned away under suspicious circumstances. "Mr. Whitfield," Maya said, her voice now carrying across the lobby with practiced precision, "I'm going to give you one more opportunity to check me into my confirmed suite. After that, I'll need to contact my legal team. I'm sure they'd be very interested in this documented pattern of technical issues and maintenance problems that seem to affect certain guests more than others." A new voice joined the conversation. "Is there a problem here?" A man in an expensive suit approached from the direction of the hotel's restaurant. His name tag identified him as Richard Palmer, Regional Director. "Actually, yes," Maya replied before Whitfield could speak. "I was just about to call my attorneys about what appears to be a clear violation of civil rights laws. Would you like to be included in that conversation, Mr. Palmer?" Palmer looked from Maya to Whitfield, then at the small crowd that had gathered. His eyes landed on Maya's tablet. "Absolutely not, Dr. Richardson," Palmer assured her, shooting a stern look at Whitfield. "If you experience any problems at all, please contact me directly." What none of them knew was that Maya had already sent a text to her financial advisor. "Look into the Grand Plaza Hotel chain. Everything, ownership, stock, debt, all of it. I think it's time for some new investments." Later that evening, Maya sat in her executive suite at the Ritz-Carlton, her laptop open in front of her. She hadn't unpacked her bags from the Grand Plaza incident. They stood near the door like silent witnesses to the afternoon's events. The city lights twinkled outside her window, but her focus was entirely on her screen. "Send me everything you can find about the Grand Plaza Hotel chain," she spoke into her phone. On the other end, David Chen, her most trusted financial analyst, was already typing. "Already on it, Dr. Richardson," David replied. "Initial reports show they're not in great shape. The chain has been losing money for the past 3 years. Their stock has dropped 30% since January." Maya opened the email Sarah, the receptionist from the Grand Plaza, at Center an hour ago. The young woman had been brave enough to compile a detailed list of discriminatory incidents at the hotel, complete with dates, names, and contact information of guests who had been turned away. Interesting timing, Maya murmured, more to herself than to David. She took a sip of her chamomile tea, her mind working through possibilities like a chess master planning several moves ahead. Her phone buzzed with another incoming email. This one was from Mrs. Peterson, the housekeeping supervisor who had stood up to Whitfield. The subject line read, Internal Reports. Confidential. David, I'm sending you some internal documents. I need a full analysis by morning. Maya forwarded the email. And get me a meeting with our legal team first thing tomorrow. Will this affect your keynote speech at the conference? David asked. Maya smiled, remembering how the regional director, Palmer, had practically begged her not to withdraw from the conference after the incident. No, I'll give the speech. In fact, it's now more important than ever that I do. She opened another laptop and began reviewing the conference presentation she would deliver tomorrow. Her talk about artificial intelligence and its role in transforming industries took on a new meaning now. Sometimes, transformation needed a push from the outside. A soft knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. It was her assistant, Jessica, carrying several folders. I have the preliminary reports you asked for, Jessica said, laying out the folders on the coffee table. The Grand Plaza chain has 27 properties across the country. Their biggest shareholders are getting nervous about the declining revenue. There are rumors they might sell. Maya walked to the window, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. The Grand Plaza's distinctive roof was visible a few blocks away. Tell me about their leadership structure. Jessica flipped through her notes. The current CEO, Robert Montgomery, inherited the chain from his father. He's been trying to modernize, but the old guard on the board keeps blocking changes. They've had 3 discrimination lawsuits in the past year alone, all settled quietly. And their debt situation? They're leveraged pretty heavily. Their main credit line comes up for renewal in 6 months. Jessica paused. Maya, are you thinking what I think you're thinking? Maya turned from the window, a determined expression on her face. Get me a meeting with Montgomery. Don't mention my name, use one of our subsidiary companies. And contact everyone on Sarah's list. See if they're willing to share their stories. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from the conference organizer. Maya, just heard about what happened at the Grand Plaza. We can still move you to another hotel. She typed back quickly. No need. Everything is fine. But I'd like to make a small change to my presentation tomorrow. Maya spent the next hour modifying her speech. Between slides about AI innovation and market transformation, she wove in subtle messages about adaptation, change, and the cost of failing to evolve. She knew several Grand Plaza board members would be in the audience. Just before midnight, she received one final email. This one from her bank. Investment fund ready as requested, awaiting your instructions. Maya closed her laptops and walked to the window again. In the distance, the Grand Plaza's lights still shone brightly, its old-world elegance masking the rot within, but not for long. She had built her fortune by seeing opportunities others missed, by turning obstacles into stepping stones. Time for some changes, she whispered to the city lights. Tomorrow, she would give her speech. Next week, she would start buying shares through various shell companies, and in 6 months, when the Grand Plaza's debt came due, she would be ready. The last thing she did before going to bed was send a quick message to Sarah. Keep documenting everything. Change is coming. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of activity. Maya had turned one of her company's conference rooms into a command center for what she called Project Transformation. The walls were covered with photos, documents, and charts showing the Grand Plaza Hotel's corporate structure. Sarah, who had become her inside source, sat at the large table surrounded by papers. I can't believe how many complaints we've found, Sarah said, adding another file to the growing stack. She had taken personal days off from the hotel to help Maya's team. And these are just from the past year. Maya walked around the table, studying the pattern they had uncovered. Her team had contacted over 50 guests who had faced similar discrimination at various Grand Plaza properties. The stories were all too familiar: mysterious technical issues, suddenly unavailable rooms, and hostile treatment from certain staff members. Mr. Whitfield isn't even the worst one, Sarah continued, pulling up a spreadsheet on her laptop. The manager at their Chicago location has turned away twice as many people. They just hide it better there. David Chen, Maya's financial analyst, rushed into the room with fresh printouts. "You need to see this," he said, spreading the papers across the table. "The Grand Plaza's board is having an emergency meeting next week. Their stock just hit a 5-year low." Maya picked up one of the reports, her eyes scanning the numbers. "What about the employees who helped us? Are they safe?" Jessica, her assistant, nodded from her corner of the room. "Mrs. Peterson and the others are being protected. We documented every interaction, and our legal team has prepared statements in case of retaliation." The door opened again, and Maya's head of security, Marcus, entered with a serious expression. "Dr. Richardson, we've completed the background checks you requested. You were right about the pattern." He placed a thick folder on the table. "Several key executives at Grand Plaza have connections to other discriminatory incidents at previous jobs. They've just been moving from company to company, bringing their prejudices with them." Maya sat down, taking everything in. On her tablet, she pulled up the latest email from her bank. Her investment team had already quietly purchased 5% of Grand Plaza's stock through various subsidiaries. Nobody had noticed yet. They were too busy dealing with their falling stock prices and mounting complaints. "Sarah," Maya said, turning to the young receptionist, "tell me about the good people at Grand Plaza, the ones who want change." Sarah's face brightened. "There are many, actually. Most of the younger staff, several department heads like Mrs. Peterson, even some middle managers. They've been trying to push for diversity training and better policies, but the old guard keeps blocking everything." "And the CEO, Montgomery?" Maya asked. David pulled up another report. "He's been trying to modernize, but his hands are tied. The board is controlled by his father's old friends. They're all from a different era, and they're all major shareholders." Maya stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city skyline. Behind her, the team waited quietly, knowing that look on her face. It was the same look she had when she built her AI company from scratch, when she'd overcome every obstacle placed in her way. "Here's what we know," she said, turning back to the room. "We have documented evidence of systematic discrimination. We have testimonies from guests and employees. We have proof of financial mismanagement. And most importantly, we have people inside who want change." She picked up her phone and dialed her investment team. "Start phase 2. I want another 10% of the shares, but keep it quiet. Use different companies, different banks. No one connects the dots until we're ready." Sarah looked at the photos on the wall. Faces of people who had been humiliated, turned away, made to feel less than. What happens when they finally figure out what's happening? Maya smiled, but it wasn't the warm smile they were used to. This was the smile of someone who had spent a lifetime turning other people's prejudices into their own downfall. By then, it will be too late. The Grand Plaza doesn't just need new ownership, it needs a complete transformation, and we're going to give it exactly that. Marcus cleared his throat. "The annual shareholders' meeting is in 3 months. "Perfect," Maya said, picking up another report. "That's exactly when they'll learn that their technical issues have become their biggest problem yet." She turned to her team. "Let's make every detail perfect. No mistakes, no loose ends. When we move, it needs to be absolutely clear that the old way of doing business is over." The room hummed with energy as everyone returned to their tasks. Outside, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the city. In 3 months, those shadows would reveal a very different Grand Plaza hotel. The Grand Plaza's main conference room buzzed with nervous energy on a cold Monday morning. Board members and executives filled the seats, their faces tense as they looked at the presentation screen showing their falling stock prices. CEO Robert Montgomery stood at the front, his tie slightly crooked, dark circles under his eyes. "Ladies and gentlemen," Montgomery said, his voice tired, "we can't ignore this anymore. Our stock has dropped another 15% this month alone. We need immediate action." In the back of the room, Thomas Whitfield shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The hotel manager had been called to this emergency meeting along with other key staff. He hadn't slept well in weeks, not since that incident with Dr. Richardson. Suddenly, the door opened. A group of well-dressed people walked in, led by a sharp-looking woman in her 50s who introduced herself as Janet Wong from Global Hospitality Ventures. "Mr. Montgomery," Janet said, placing a thick folder on the table, "my team and I are here to discuss an acquisition offer." The room grew quiet. Montgomery looked surprised. "This wasn't on the agenda. I'm sorry, but this is a private board meeting." Janet smiled professionally. "Actually, we have every right to be here. Global Hospitality Ventures now owns 28% of Grand Plaza's shares." Gasps filled the room. Board members started whispering to each other. Old Mr. Harrison, one of the longest-serving board members, stood up angrily. "Impossible. We would have known about such large purchases." "Not if they were bought through different companies," a younger board member said, quickly checking his tablet. "Look at the trading records. Small purchases through various entities over the past 3 months. They stayed just under the reporting threshold each time. It was brilliant, actually." Montgomery loosened his tie further. "What do you want?" Janet opened her folder. "Grand Plaza needs new leadership, new vision, and most importantly, new values. We're prepared to buy the remaining shares at $12 each. That's a 40% premium over the current market price." The room erupted in chaos. $12 per share was more than anyone had expected, especially given the company's recent troubles. Board members huddled in small groups, calculating their potential profits on phones and tablets. "And if we refuse?" old Mr. Harrison demanded. Janet's smile didn't waver. "Then we'll call for a shareholder vote. We already have support from several major investors who are uncomfortable with recent incidents at your properties." She glanced meaningfully at Whitfield, who seemed to shrink in his chair. Montgomery sat down heavily in his chair. He knew exactly what she meant. The discrimination complaints, the lawsuits, the declining reputation. It all finally caught up with them. "Who?" he started, then cleared his throat. "Who is really behind this offer?" "My client prefers to remain anonymous for now," Janet replied. "But I can assure you they have the resources and determination to make this happen, with or without your cooperation." For the next 2 hours, the room was filled with heated discussions, phone calls to lawyers, and rapid calculations. Janet's team sat quietly, watching it all unfold. They had expected this reaction. It was all part of the plan. By early afternoon, the decision was made. The old guard, seeing their power slipping away, chose to take the money and run. Montgomery, looking both relieved and defeated, signed the preliminary agreement. As the board members filed out of the room, Janet made one final announcement. "Oh, and effective immediately, Mr. Whitfield and several other managers will be placed on administrative leave pending review." Whitfield stood up, his face red. "You can't do that. I've been here for 20 years. "Actually, we can," Janet said calmly. "And if I were you, I'd leave quietly. We have quite a file on your management style." Later that evening, in Maya's office across town, Janet reported the success of their mission. Maya listened with satisfaction, looking at the framed photo on her wall. Her grandmother, who had worked as a housekeeper in hotels like the Grand Plaza, who had taught her to turn obstacles into opportunities. "Should we announce you as the new owner?" Janet asked. Maya shook her head, smiling. "Not yet. First, we clean house, change the culture, show them what real hospitality looks like." She picked up a folder labeled Grand Plaza, Phase 2. Let them wonder a little longer about who bought their hotel. The reveal will be worth the wait. Outside her window, the sun was setting behind the Grand Plaza's distinctive silhouette. By this time tomorrow, the old signs would start coming down. A new era was about to begin. The Grand Plaza Hotel hummed with activity on a bright spring morning, but it wasn't business as usual. Construction crews moved through the lobby, updating the decor while maintaining its classic elegance. New computers were being installed at the front desk, and fresh uniforms were being distributed to the staff. Sarah, now promoted to assistant manager of guest relations, stood proudly in her new blazer as she addressed a group of 30 new employees. The hotel's training room had been completely renovated, with modern technology and comfortable seating replacing the old, worn-out furniture. "Welcome to the new Grand Plaza," she said confidently. "Our first priority is making every guest feel valued and respected. Every single guest, no exceptions." In the back of the room, Janet Wong nodded approvingly. Over the past month, they had carefully selected these new staff members, focusing on both diversity and exceptional customer service experience. The old guard was mostly gone. Some had resigned. Others had been let go with severance packages after their discriminatory practices were documented. Mrs. Peterson, now the head of hospitality operations, entered the room carrying a stack of tablets. "These are your new guest service tools," she explained, starting to distribute them. "The AI-powered system will help us track guest preferences and ensure consistent service quality." The new employees examined their tablets with interest. None of them knew that the sophisticated software had been developed by Richardson AI Solutions, or that their mysterious new owner had personally overseen its creation. Meanwhile, in the hotel's executive offices, Robert Montgomery sat across from Maya's team of consultants, reviewing the changes. He had been allowed to stay on as an advisor, having shown genuine interest in reforming the hotel's culture. "The bookings are already up 12%, he said, sounding surprised. "And the guest satisfaction scores have improved dramatically." David Chen, Maya's financial analyst, smiled. "That's just the beginning. Wait until people start experiencing our new service standards." The transformation wasn't just cosmetic. Every aspect of the hotel's operations was being modernized and improved. The kitchens were being renovated to accommodate diverse dietary requirements and cultural preferences. The new executive chef had experience in international cuisine and had trained at hotels worldwide. The spa and fitness center were being expanded, with services and facilities designed to welcome guests of all backgrounds and abilities. Prayer rooms and meditation spaces were being added, respecting various religious and spiritual needs. A new business center offered state-of-the-art technology, and the conference facilities were being upgraded with advanced audio-visual equipment. The changes would make the Grand Plaza a premier destination for corporate events and international conferences. Most importantly, the staff was being completely retrained. Diversity and inclusion weren't just buzzwords here anymore, they were fundamental requirements. Every employee, from housekeeping to management, went through comprehensive cultural sensitivity training. "The anonymous owner seems to know exactly what they're doing," Montgomery commented, reviewing the latest changes. Jessica, Maya's assistant who was overseeing the transformation, shared a knowing look with David. "Yes, they certainly do," she replied diplomatically. In the hotel restaurant, which was being redesigned with a new globally inspired menu, Marcus, the head of security, was installing a sophisticated new system. Every complaint, every incident, every interaction would be logged and reviewed. There would be no more technical issues or mysterious lost reservations. Sarah finished her training session and walked through the lobby, remembering that day months ago when she had slipped Maya that note. She couldn't believe how much had changed since then. The same lobby that had once been a scene of discrimination was now truly welcoming to everyone. Her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "How's everything going?" It was Maya, checking in as she'd often did. "Amazing," Sarah typed back. "You should see their faces when we tell them about the new policies. Some of the old-timers can hardly believe it." "Perfect," came the reply. "Keep up the good work. Reveal day is coming soon." Sarah smiled, tucking her phone away. Only a handful of people knew the truth about their new owner, and she was proud to be one of them. The hotel's transformation was almost complete, but the best part, the look on certain people's faces when they learned who had bought the Grand Plaza, was still to come. As the sun set behind the New York skyline, the hotel's new signs were being installed, gleaming against the darkening sky. The old Grand Plaza was gone, and in its place, something new and better was rising. And somewhere in her office across town, Maya Richardson was planning the final act of her carefully orchestrated transformation. The Grand Plaza's largest ballroom was filled to capacity on a sunny autumn morning. The annual stakeholder meeting had drawn a bigger crowd than usual. Everyone wanted to meet the mysterious new owner who had transformed the hotel chain over the past 6 months. Thomas Whitfield sat in the back row, his suit slightly wrinkled. He had been called back for this meeting, along with several other former managers. Their severance packages required their attendance at this final session. He fidgeted nervously, watching the door. Janet Wong stepped onto the stage, tapping the microphone. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this special announcement." She paused, scanning the room. "As you know, Global Hospitality Ventures has made significant changes to the Grand Plaza chain. Today, you'll finally meet the visionary behind these changes. The room buzzed with excitement. Journalists sat ready with their cameras and notepads. Current employees, including Sarah and Mrs. Peterson, tried to hide their knowing smiles. But first, Janet continued, "Let's review what we've accomplished in 6 months." She clicked a remote, and the large screen behind her came to life. The presentation showed impressive numbers. Guest satisfaction up by 40%, bookings increased by 35%, and staff retention improved by 50%. The hotel's stock price had risen dramatically, making even the old shareholders who had sold their stakes regret their decision. "And now," Janet said, "I'm honored to introduce the true owner of the new Grand Plaza hotel chain, the CEO of Richardson AI Solutions, Dr. Maya Richardson." The room fell silent for a moment, then erupted in gasps and whispers. Maya walked onto the stage in a perfectly tailored royal blue suit, her heels clicking confidently against the floor. She stood at the podium, waiting for the noise to die down. In the back row, Whitfield's face had turned pale. He gripped the armrests of his chair, recognizing the woman he had tried to turn away from his hotel months ago. "Good morning," Maya said, her voice clear and strong. "Some of you might remember me from a rather interesting check-in experience right here at the Grand Plaza." Soft laughter rippled through the crowd. "That day taught me something important. Sometimes the best way to fix a broken system is to own it." She clicked to the next slide, showing the hotel's new diversity statistics, training programs, and community initiatives. The Grand Plaza was built on the promise of luxury and excellence. But true luxury isn't just about fancy lobbies and high thread counts. It's about making every single guest feel valued and respected. Maya walked to the center of the stage. "To those who wondered why we kept our ownership quiet during the transformation, we wanted to prove that these changes would work on their own merit. And they have. Our success shows that inclusion isn't just morally right, it's good business." She gestured to Sarah and Mrs. Peterson in the front row. "The real heroes of this transformation are the employees who had the courage to stand up for what's right. The ones who helped document the problems, who stayed to be part of the solution, who believed in a better way of doing things." Then Maya turned slightly toward the back of the room, where Whitfield and the other former managers sat. "To those who thought certain people didn't belong in luxury hotels, thank you. You showed me exactly what needed to change. Your technical issues became our opportunity for real progress." The room erupted in applause. Journalists were frantically taking notes. Several employees were wiping away tears. Sarah beamed with pride, remembering the risk she had taken in slipping that first note to Maya. "The Grand Plaza's future is bright," Maya continued, "because it now truly welcomes everyone. We've proven that excellence and inclusion go hand in hand. And this is just the beginning." As she finished her speech, Whitfield quietly stood and slipped out of the ballroom. But Maya noticed. She noticed everything. She watched him leave with a small smile, knowing that his departure marked the final end of the old era. The standing ovation lasted for several minutes. As Maya looked out over the crowd, she saw her grandmother's dream finally realized, a luxury hotel where everyone was treated with dignity and respect. The note her grandmother had written in her diary years ago came back to her. "Sometimes, child, you have to become the change you want to see." Maya had done more than that. She had become the owner of the change she wanted to see. 1 year had passed since Maya's dramatic revelation as the owner of the Grand Plaza hotel chain. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the same ballroom where she had made her announcement, but today it was set up differently. Round tables filled the space, each decorated with elegant centerpieces representing different cultures from around the world. Sarah, now the general manager of the flagship New York location, stood at the podium in a crisp black suit. At 32, she was one of the youngest hotel managers in the city, but her confidence and competence had earned her the position. "Welcome to the first annual Grand Plaza Hospitality Excellence Awards," she said to the gathered crowd of employees, industry leaders, and media representatives. The hotel chain had become a case study in successful business transformation, and today they were celebrating their achievements. Maya sat at the central table, wearing a deep purple dress that complemented her warm brown skin. Beside her was Mrs. Peterson, now the Global Director of Training and Development, who had helped implement the new standards across all properties. Robert Montgomery, who had become a valuable ally in the transformation, sat with them, his pride in the changes evident on his face. In just 1 year, Sarah continued, we've opened our doors to guests from over 180 countries. Our staff now speaks 42 languages. But more importantly, we speak one universal language: respect. On the screens around the room, photos and videos showed the hotel's journey. The old Grand Plaza sign being replaced with the new modern logo. The first graduation ceremony of their hospitality training academy, where local youth from underprivileged backgrounds receive world-class hotel management education. Celebrations of various cultural festivals in the hotel lobby, making every guest feel at home. Our occupancy rates are at an all-time high, Sarah announced. But numbers don't tell the whole story. The real success is in the lives we've touched. She gestured to a young man in a chef's uniform who stood up from one of the tables. James here was a dishwasher last year. Through our employee development program, he's now a sous chef, creating fusion dishes that honor his Caribbean heritage. More success stories followed. A former housekeeper who was now managing guest services. A bellhop who had become an IT specialist after showing talent with the new systems. Each story highlighted how the hotel had transformed not just its physical space, but also its people. Maya watched it all with quiet satisfaction. The transformation hadn't been easy. Some old customers had left, uncomfortable with the changes. But for everyone who left, 5 new ones had come, drawn by the hotel's reputation for excellence and genuine inclusivity. And now, Sarah said, her voice filled with emotion, we have a special announcement. Dr. Richardson, would you join me? Maya walked to the podium, touching Sarah's shoulder warmly as they passed. Today, we're launching the Grand Plaza Future Leaders Initiative, she announced. We're partnering with 10 universities to provide full scholarships in hospitality management to students from underrepresented communities. The room erupted in applause. In the back, a group of young people, the first scholarship recipients, stood up, their faces shining with hope and determination. But that's not all, Maya continued. We're also acquiring 3 more hotel properties. She paused, letting the news sink in. These hotels have, unfortunately, become known for discriminatory practices. We're going to change that, just like we changed the Grand Plaza. The message was clear. This wasn't just about one hotel chain anymore. It was about transforming the entire industry. After the ceremony, Maya walked through the hotel lobby with Sarah. They stopped at the spot where their journey had begun, where Whitfield had tried to turn Maya away. Do you ever wonder what happened to him? Sarah asked. Maya smiled. I heard he's working at a small motel in New Jersey. Sometimes the best revenge is letting people live with their own choices. They looked around the bustling lobby. A Muslim family was being checked in by a hijab-wearing receptionist. An elderly couple in wheelchairs was being assisted by attentive staff. A group of international business travelers chatted in multiple languages by the coffee shop. You know what's funny? Maya said. That day when they turned me away, I could have just gone to another hotel. Instead, I bought this one and changed everything. Sarah laughed. Best technical issue ever. As they walked toward the new guest education center, where cooking classes and cultural exchange programs were held, Maya thought about her grandmother again. The old Grand Plaza was gone, replaced by something far better, a place where luxury meant not just elegant surroundings, but dignity and respect for all. The sun was setting outside, casting a golden glow through the lobby's windows. Another day was ending at the Grand Plaza, where every guest was truly a VIP, and where technical issues were nothing more than a distant memory of a changed world.